Question from Crispy Crackers. Simply, who do I look up to as a fellow author? Again, lots of people that I could name quite easily. One of my absolute favourite short fiction writers is Anna Tamble. She lives in the Australian outback, writes really quirky stories ranging through from odd little fables and fairy tales, through science fiction to really sort of gritty, tough, mainstream stories. Huge admiration for her work. Jeff Vandermeer, fantastic writer. I love what he writes. I love how he is as a writer. True professional. Lovely guy. You kind of aspire to have that kind of presence in the field. Writers like Eric Brown, long-time friend of mine. Excellent writer, excellent professional. Writers like Ian MacDonald. As I say, I'd love to be able to do half of what someone like Ian does. Far too many writers to really mention and pick out in detail. Another question here from Tim Olean about my academic background in environmental science, asking, do I think it's probable that within the next generation Western society will suffer major adverse effects from the human impact on the environment, things like climate change, rising populations, demands for energy and food, competition? I think inevitably, yes. We're seeing it now. We're seeing the impact of environmental pressure on the environment. I don't think there are very many scientists left around who don't believe that there's something serious happening with the climate as a result of our input. So yes, over the next 100 or so years, we're going to see huge changes. I think on a personal level, for me, I've had a shift from genuinely believing that a lot of we can make a huge impact by pushing the green agenda, a bit more recycling, that kind of thing, to thinking this can take far more than that to get through to us. Seems increasingly likely that changes are going to be sort of the high-level disaster level before it really gets through to us, how we all have to change our lifestyles and the way we operate. Science fiction has a huge role in that. Science fiction is all about exploring possibilities. And yes, the science fiction audience is only a relatively small audience, and doesn't necessarily include the people who can have the biggest impact, but science fiction trickles through to the mainstream. Written science fiction feeds through to film science fiction, TV science fiction, gets picked up in all kinds of areas beyond. And really no science fiction writer can set a story on Earth within the next 100 years without exploring the possibility, what's going to happen, what our impact on the environment's going to be. As I say, science fiction's a political genre. We make these kind of judgments when we write stories, and you can't avoid big things like environmental change if you're writing near-future science fiction. On that note, a bit more upbeat. People often cite science fiction, this is from Brave Sir Robin, people often cite science fiction as an inspiration for technological development. Is there anything I've seen in the science fiction world that I'd like to see come to pass? On a very much daydreaming level, then yes, there's lots of things. I grew up thoroughly excited by the prospect of space travel, colonization of other planets, that kind of thing. So I'd love to see a future where that came to pass, where we actually get through the sort of bottleneck of the next 100 years of environmental impact, and we've actually got a sustainable future where we can move out and explore other worlds, colonize other worlds, see what wonders are out there. So yes, that would be fantastic if that came to pass. As I say, I think for me science fiction at the moment especially is more a genre of warning. It's more like science fiction is more likely to highlight things that we would want to avoid and ways that we might avoid them, rather than necessarily be portraying a sort of genuinely glossy future where everything's fine and we don't need to worry about some of the things that are going on in the world. Lawyers, Guns and Money asks, what science fiction themes do I see on the horizon? Is there anything that's just being touched on now that might be discussed over the next several years or decades ahead? So there's always a science fiction that's on the cutting edge. There are always science fiction writers who are absolutely immersed in new technologies, new scientific developments, and so yes, there's a lot of that. I'm not that kind of writer. I'm not that immersed in the cutting edge of these things. I'm more one step back, looking at broader implications of things. I think, like most science fiction writers are. You know, on that kind of level, I think we're still seeing the impact of the whole IT revolution, the internet revolution, biological engineering. There's lots of exciting things happening there, lots of scary things happening there. And for me, some of the most interesting science fiction is what's exploring those areas, what's looking at what's just around the corner. And as I've said, the science fiction that's set in the nearest future can't avoid our impact on the environment. It can't avoid social and political change that comes from that as a consequence. So I think, to me, yes, there are scientific developments that are really relevant, but I think the most interesting ones to me are the social and political developments that are taking place and how we react to them, how we change. A couple of questions here, one from Bert Swain and one from David Rees, asking me about movies and TV adaptations of science fiction. Which movies do I think have worked well as adaptations? Which TV programs work well as science fiction? This is where I have to confess that I don't really go out of my way to watch too much TV or movie science fiction. I think probably because it doesn't work for me in the same way that written science fiction does. I love the way words on a page can, create a whole picture, a whole canvas in your head where all these things happen. It's that collaboration between a writer and a reader. Every reader's take on a story is different. Movies and TV don't do that. It's a much more shared experience, which is good in its own way. It's just it doesn't work for me in the way that written fiction does. I do like good science fiction movies. I love good Philip K. Dick adaptations, even bad Philip K. Dick adaptations. But I don't, as I say, I don't tend to think, right, I'm going to watch a science fiction movie tonight. I watch lots of movies, and quite a few of them do end up as science fiction movies. But to be honest, I'm probably more likely to catch me watching a chick flick. DZ Neil says, my parents are currently working in Essex, which is where I live in the UK. While I was visiting them, I was introduced to the term Essex girls. How often is that term actually used over there, or is it just like a running joke to troll the Yanks? Well, there's actually a TV series going on at the moment that's all about Essex girls and boys. It's a running joke, but it's not just for the Americans, it's for all of us. I'm an Essex boy. I grew up in Essex. I moved away for several years, and I ended up coming back here. So yes, they do exist. We're not all as portrayed in things like this TV series, but it's a definite social phenomenon, I think. Another question from DZ Neil. What do I like reading when I'm not writing? Does the fact that I'm a writer burn me out on reading, or does it make me a more voracious reader? Goes through phases. When I've been working on a novel and spent a lot of time working on that, I get to a stage where I just want to go away and read lots of other people's stuff. I wish I could read like I did when I was a teenager. When I was 15 or 16, I'd go to the local library, I'd come away with 3 or 4 books, and I would read them, and the next day I would take them back, and I'd come away with another 3 or 4 books. Don't know how I managed to just read that many words in such a short space of time, but I did genuinely read them. I wasn't skipping bits. But now I rarely get the time to sit down with a good book. I'd love to be able to. I think a telling answer that I gave to a similar question was to a group of students a year or so ago when they asked what science fiction I was reading, and my immediate answer was that I rarely read science fiction unless I'm paid to, which is a sad truth. I don't get much reading time. Most of the reading time that I do get is when I'm commissioned to write a book review. So that tends to be, I have some say in which books I review, but partly it's dictated by my editors as well. I'm lucky enough that I have read some very good science fiction in doing that. But when I'm not reading for review or reading other people's manuscripts, which I do a lot of as well, then I tend to read outside the genre, really. I'd love to have more time to read, as I say. It's just unfortunate that I don't at the moment. An interesting one from an utensil. Says, what's my present state of mind? Stressed. I have a day job where I work at my local university, and we're under a lot of pressure to deliver results very quickly at the moment, so that's quite a high pressure environment. Stressed. I have a very high workload outside that, in running Infinity Plus as an ebook imprint, in writing, reviewing, all the various activities attached to those professions. So I can never have enough time to fit everything in. It's been an interesting few weeks with illness in various ways, nasty bugs that I've had, and my fiance's been in and out of hospital for various reasons. So yeah, fairly stressed again. State of mind, state of body. Very achy at the moment. Yesterday I ran 15 miles, which is the furthest I've ever run. I'm training to do a marathon next month, which was my first marathon, raising money for an epilepsy charity. My 17-year-old daughter has epilepsy, and this particular charity has been very, very supportive for us and her over the years, and it's just my chance to try and put something back for them. So if you search for me on the web, you'll find my charity site, and do feel free to sponsor me to help me raise some money for them. And if not, just think of me next month when I'm desperately trying to run 26 miles and keep going. State of mind, yeah, despite all that, pretty good, I think. Lots of really exciting things happening in my life, lots of really positive stuff, and I enjoy it. I enjoy my life. I enjoy all the things that I do and the people that I'm with. So yeah, fairly positive.